it does not have the capital funds in its budget for such a large project. It simply can't do it. In addition to that, the yearly running operating costs for the building will probably be on the order of around $2.5 million. This is something the university simply cannot sustain. Maybe moving forward in like 15 years, maybe we'll be in a better financial situation, but in the near future and probably within the next 10 years, it's just not possible.
Great, thank you very much for the question. So yes, this actually was in our platform to reopen the PEC in the future. I'd like to make clear first that this is a very long-term initiative that we put into place, and I'll kind of give the background for how we came up with it. So we've been speaking with a number of different parties on campus, including Health Counseling Disability Services, the Registrar, Athletics and Recreation. And many problems that are shared by different organizations on campus is that there's a great lack of space. We have a really large building, the PEC, which is not being used at all. It's completely dead space at the moment, and it very well could be used. We know that we pitched this idea, to all of these three parties, and it's something that they've all latched onto and really would like to see happen. So I've been speaking recently with Ann Brown, the Vice Principal of Facilities, as well as Ivan McKean, the Business Manager of Physical Plant Services, which I know Team GPP had spoken with as well. And I talked to him actually today for the second time. We were talking about the repairs that would be necessary for this building and how much it would cost. I'd actually be very interested to hear where you guys got that quote for $2.5 million per year, because I asked him about this and he said it's impossible to come up with a quote for the building at this point, which is fair, for sure, because there are a lot of different repairs that need to be done in the building at the moment. So some things that we talked about were cleaning and painting of the building, the replacement of the fire alarm system, lighting being replaced, as well as ventilation as different problems that need to be done. The last point we discussed actually was the pool, and I was asking him whether that can be filled in or whether that can be locked off, and he said it would be very easy to lock it off as well. And I'll actually quote Ivan from the phone today. He said, "Nothing prevents this project from being possible." It would take time and quite a bit of money, but it's something that we were very interested in making a priority for the university in the future. We have been speaking with the parties that I listed already, and would really like to present this initiative to the provost as well in the future. But we've gotten a lot of great support at this point, and it's something that we would really like to draw many people together in order to present this and make it a priority for the university in the future. Additionally, to talk about funding, we know that the Advancement Office recently made a new priority for advancement student life. And that's something that we believe that we would like this funding directed towards this project. Given that phases 2 and 3 were not completed, I think that represents a failure of the university to commit to the student body. That project was supposed to be funded by the student body partially, and them not completing it really is a failure for us as students. And I think that it's very important that we have something completed in the future. The very last point I want to make, I hope I'm not running out of time, is from a journal article actually released today, a statement from Alan Harrison, the provost, who said it's not to say that they've been canceled. I think we still are committed to a vibrant student life center at this university and one that supports the learning environment appropriately. So we know that this is something that Alan Harrison is very interested in making a student life center for the future, and we are very much so looking forward to doing so in the next number of years. Thank you.
Yeah, this is also from a journal article today, just to confirm there has been no public statement from the university statement phases 2 and 3 won't occur. Until that statement has been given, I think it's a lot safer to stick with small initiatives, small renovations, little polishing things to help improve a lot of the small problems within the JDUC. It's a lot safer because it would be a real shame to start a big project and then literally see it knocked down really shortly thereafter.
Rebuttal? 30 seconds.
In regards to the quote we received from Ivan, it was for $30 per square foot of utilities per year. Considering the PEC is around 80,000 to 90,000 square feet, that comes to $2.5 million for the entire year. When we're looking at a capital expenditure to renovate the PEC, right now the operating budget or the capital budget, is balanced right now with transfer payments from the operating budget. If we add another capital project to the capital budget, we're going to have to take more money away from the operating budget. Taking money away from the operating budget means we reduce money that goes to our academic programs at this university. That's not something we're willing to compromise, to be perfectly honest.
Rebuttal RMS. All right, I just want to share two quick quotes, one from Principal Wolf and one from Winston Churchill. Principal Wolf said today in the Senate meeting that I attended that the entire system is on the brink of a crisis. I really doubt that we're going to invest any money in infrastructure at this time. And my quote from Churchill goes, "Do not let spacious plans for a new world divert your energies from saving what is left of the old."
Rebuttal,
Great.
JDL.
Oh, sorry, eager. Great. First, I'd like to speak on the quote that you guys actually got apparently from Ivan. I actually asked him specifically about that number because you guys had mentioned it yesterday, and he said it is impossible to come up with that number, as did Anne Brown when I spoke with her. So I'd be very curious to hear where you guys got that, and would be concerned if you are spreading misinformation about this project. Secondly, we really want to stress that this is a long-term initiative and something that can be completed in the future. It needs to be a priority for the university because they never completed our Student Life Center, which is a vital aspect of all of our experiences at this university. Thank you.
Each team has 2 additional rebuttals that they may use for any question. Rebuttal, GPP.
All right, thank you very much for the question. So I guess we'd just like to address Team GPP. We did speak with Ivan from Physical Plant Services. We did meet with Anne Brown. We did meet with Claude Belrose, talking about the JDUC, talking about the PEC. And they did tell us for any building on campus, it's about $30 per square foot for utilities alone. So if you make, it's not very hard to obtain these footage of the building and calculate 30 times the footage and calculate that it's over $2.2 million to basically keep the building running year after year. Then you have to take into account what Duncan mentioned, that this money, where is it going to come from? We have other capital priorities right now. We have the MEC-Eng building being built. We have the need for residences. The Ontario government has announced that they're only going to be funding for
Time.
new entrants.
Rebuttal, JDL.
Great, thank you. I'd like to start this by saying that we are actually not afraid of a challenge at all. This is something that's been proved this past year by AMS. We are opening a grocery store in 2 weeks. This was something that was not believed possible last year, something the same of our idea, that we think very much so is. As for funding, I know we mentioned before that there is a lot of funding coming into advancement for student life, which is something that we'd like to speak with the advancement office about. As for these quotes as well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly for yours, but this is something that I did ask Anne Brown and Ivan McKean about, and they both said that it was not possible to come up with that information, given the structure of the building, because it is a very old structure. A lot of things need to be assessed before you can come up with those numbers, but thank you.
Further rebuttals? The next question comes from another team. It reads, how would you describe the relationship between our corporate service directors and service managers? As VP Operations, how would you facilitate the most productive relationship between these two positions, beginning with Team RMS?
Yeah, I think the best way to make that relationship work is to stress that micromanagement doesn't need to happen. That fundamentally the service directors are overseers, and that the VP Ops is an overseer of them, and that the service managers are the ones really making a lot of the small-scale decisions, and the higher positions than that are a matter of oversight, vision, pushing, sharing, and generally trying to make sure that the big picture flows down into the small actions, and that also the small actions can be seen and understood where they're going by people on top of the hierarchy.
All right, thank you very much for the question.
Sorry, we're going to go in reverse order, so it will go to JDL.
Great, thank you for the question. So yeah, this is obviously a very important aspect of the society. I know I spoke about this earlier, that there really is a chain of authority in the AMS. So the Vice President of Operations oversees 3 service directors: hospitality and safety, retail, and media, who then oversee many different managers as well. Head managers and then assistant managers below that. So there really does need to be this chain. I think the best way to think about this, and I'm going to reference somebody who I talk to quite frequently, Mr. John McDermott. On one of my first days working as the head manager of Common Ground, he told me how this relationship would work. Again, this is his opinion, something I do agree with though. Head managers are like the captain of a ship. And your service is your ship that you're supposed to be running. So you're responsible for the day-to-day activities of the service. You ensure that it can keep running every day and are in command of all of your staff as well. Your service director and I mean terms are kind of all relative with this. Your service director is your admiral, who's in charge of a small sector of the fleet, oversees day-to-day operations as well, ensures that the service functions properly, and is able to provide advice to the management teams. I think the most important thing I'd like to stress in this point is that service directors really do act as a support system for their head managers. That really is a big part of their job, as it is a very HR-oriented role. And then finally, VP Ops would be your commander of this fleet of ships, our 10 different corporate services, and they're supposed to be acting in this chain and leading by example in order to ensure that everything is run as efficiently as possible. So there is not a direct connection, I'd say, between the VP Ops and service managers, and there shouldn't necessarily be. I think in an ideal corporation, and the AMS is a very unique one for sure, you would have a vice president that would oversee all of your services together. Given that we're all taking full-time course loads, it's obviously very difficult to do that in the situation, and that really is why the service directors are available. Also, just that there are 10 services, it would be very difficult to oversee the complex nature of a service. For one person to oversee 10 would be, I think, in many ways impossible to do a good job of doing so. Thank you.
GPP.
Thank you for the question. Again, I'll kind of use another analogy here for this question. When I see the relationship between service director and the managers beneath them, I see it as kind of a roadmap and driving a car. The service directors are there to kind of help build a map for the service, try to find a guiding vision or goal for where they want to see that service to go. Then the managers are they're driving the car. They're doing the daily operations. They're actually moving the vehicle towards the endpoint and achieving the goal. That's kind of how I see it personally, and obviously the VP Ops is behind the scenes with the vision for the entire corporation. They're the ones who have an oversight of everything that's going on and are trying to coordinate the activities of all the directors.
The last team submitted question is directed towards Team JDL, though the other two teams may also answer this, and each team receives 3 minutes to answer. Question reads, your team has stated that reopening the PEC would be a long-term project under the university's control, which would most likely not occur during your tenure as AMS executive. Since the success of much of your platform relies on the reopening of the PEC, what aspects of your platform are strong enough to have you elected, considering the number of platform points that rely on the reopening of the PEC? 3 minutes.
Great, thank you for the question. That's very interesting, actually. First, I'll comment on the PEC, and I think like we already talked about, this is a long-term plan. I think it's very important that as AMS executive, we don't only look into the small vision of our 1 year. It's important to not promise things that we want to get done just to have by our namesake. It's very important to start things that will benefit the Queen's community in the long term. That's why we include this in our platform, because we think this is something that will be very valuable to students in the future as well, over the next 10 to 15 years even. As for our other platform points, I think we have actually a lot of other tangible initiatives that are in no way related to the PEC. To name a few, we want to put a library counter in Stauffer that will be attached to an app so that you'll be able to see how many seats there are available in Stauffer at any given time. We've also actually included a full-service salad bar at Common Ground Express to fit in with our vision of the importance of health and wellness on campus, I think. I think there are many different platform points on ours that are in no way related. I mean, to name a couple more, Q College is a very creative-based idea that's very unique from any other of our points as well. So I'd be very interested to hear which points you believe are directly tied to the PEC and why the PEC is not possible, because we really do want to challenge ourselves in these coming years. And if we had a student government that never challenged themselves, we'd never get anything amazing done. And this place is the most amazing student government I've seen, perhaps the only, so I'm biased, but there's so much that we are capable of, and we should always be pushing that to do more. Thank you.
Would any other team like to respond? GPP.
When my team sat down to craft our platform, we did look for points that we realistically and responsibly could complete within our time as an AMS executive. All of our points are completable within our tenure, and that is something that we believe strongly should be an important part of writing your platform. Any aspects to our points that talk about things that are out of our control, we do speak to lobbying, and it's only in points such as when we talk about sensor lighting, installing our own, and then lobbying the university, which is obviously out of our control. Every other point is very much under our control, This point, in terms of reopening the PEC, it has been stated that it is a long-term plan, moving HCDS in and intramurals, and also writing exams in that space for points which rely on the reopening of this building. And these aren't things that can be accomplished in the time as their tenure. They are promises that can't be kept, and it is a huge pillar of their platform. The main pillars of our platforms will be completed within our tenure as AMS executive.
Rebuttal, JDL. RMS.
All right, I'd just like to speak, I guess, in this debate. So first of all, in terms of our platform, we took an approach of room for improvement. We looked at the AMS and we said, what can we do better? And a lot of the ideas we propose are really tangible and feasible, and I'd really like to see them happen. In terms of big projects, we want to maximize the potential of what we already have, and we don't want to use all the money we have right away. We believe strongly in the principle of participatory democracy, so apart from certain critical projects that we'd really like to see happen, like renovating the Peer Support Center and to give them a bigger space and more confidential space using soundproofing, we want to let you have your input in what we're going to do. Platform contains a lot of points, and personally I think when you're voting for it, there are some points you might not like, so I'd like to gauge student opinion before I say you voted for all of them. And the other thing that I'd like to point out that has been mentioned in terms of the library app is that I really liked something the ACT did this year actually with opening up Wallace Hall for study space during exam time. I think the reason why I don't go to Stauffer when it's exam time is because it is just generally really full. Douglas closes early and then you're like, oh, where do I go? And having a place like Wallace Hall open was a really good idea, and that's something I completely support in terms of giving people a place to go when they want to study.
Rebuttal, JDL.
Great, thank you for your input, Jeffrey, as well, actually. So I think I'd like to begin again by saying, why would we not challenge ourselves? And why would we not push past our one-year term? There's no corporation where you don't plan for longer, so why would we not be doing that ourselves? If we never challenge ourselves, we'd never learn. This place is about learning. We're at a university, and the student government is here to help us learn outside the classroom. I can safely say I've learned more in my jobs here than I have from anything else at this university. So I really do want to stress again, if we never pushed ourselves for something that's a large challenge, we would never get anywhere. And that's very, very important. The other thing I'd like to point out as well, TK, the points that you listed that are not able to be completed within our tenure were all under the PEC, but we actually have about 15 other platform points that can be completed within the 1 year. Thank you.
Rebuttal, RMS.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that I really don't think a project needs to be big and flashy to be beneficial in the long term. Fundamentally, small incremental improvements lay down a really important foundation. It doesn't need to be something as large as the PEC. It can be lots of little small things. They may not be as flashy, but they're still really important.
Rebuttal, GPP.
I think the difference is that it's important to challenge ourselves and, of course, plan long term. However, the problem with having a main platform point that surrounds something that you can't control is that it seems like a promise that you're making to students that you can't carry out within your term. In the way that it is worded in the platform and in the way that it has been advertised to students, this seems as a very attractive idea that students would vote for, but it isn't under the control of the teams, it is under the control of the university, and it's still up in the air as to whether or not this is something we can even do. So to make that promise to students that you will open this facility is unfair. We should be planning long term, we should be challenging ourselves, but we should be ensuring that what we're promising is actually feasible.
Rebuttal, JDL.
Great, thank you very much. And I actually wanted to say first that I actually really agree with Briar about what he was saying about many smaller points on platforms as well. There's no need to have only flashy aspects of your platform. And it's some of the small things that really do make the biggest difference in the AMS on a year-to-year basis. And that's why our platform has a lot of those along with our bigger ideas. So to list a few, because we seem so convinced that our platform is not feasible within our tenure, we do actually have Q College, the library resources, undergraduate research opportunities, Common Ground Salad Bar at Common Ground Express, a dietary restrictions guide for campus food services. We'd like to provide more accessible water fountains on campus, and we'd like to create a sustainability culture on campus as well. Those are just a few of them. I'm afraid I can't go into more detail, obviously, because I have a limited amount of time, but I'd just like to point that as well. Thank you.
Rebuttal, JDL.
I'd like to comment on GPP's definition of realistic. The difference between Team GPP and Team JDL is that we are up for a challenge with consultation. I'm speaking specifically about the course registration waiting list. Team GPP thought it was appropriate to consult with the old registrar and one faculty. This is not an ASIS election, this is an AMS election, and the AMS represents all faculties in all schools.
Rebuttal GPP.
All right, thank you very much for your comments, Mira. So to address that, we realize that this is an AMS election, not an ASIS election to begin with. In addition to that, we recognize the difference between a challenge within the organization that the AMS is and within what the university is. We need to challenge ourselves as a society, not challenge the university. We recognize that the university is in a dire financial situation, and to challenge them to open a building that's going to cost millions of dollars to students and jeopardize academics is not reasonable and shouldn't be happening. That's one thing. To address the course registration waiting list, it's on our platform, and we're saying that we're consulting with students, with faculty, and faculty members, and not only the Dean of Arts and Science have expressed that they're interested in this on their behalf because they want to know what courses students are getting into, and this is something that Solus is capable of doing.
Rebuttal JDL.
I have one last thing to add here. I think it's very important that we challenge ourselves. Why would we also not challenge our university? We are the important part of this school. This school would not be running without our 14,000 undergraduate students. So I think it would be very irresponsible for your student government to not try to challenge the administration as well. It is our job to do that literally, and I don't see why we would never challenge the university and try to only cooperate. However, I believe we do need to cooperate and challenge them when necessary. So I don't see why we would do one and not the other. Thank you.
We will open up questions from the floor now. Teams JDL and GPP have used up their 2 rebuttal cards. So JDL and GPP have a maximum of 1 rebuttal per question from now on. RMS still has 3. Questions from the floor may be asked of the entire team, and they may be directed to 1 or 2 or 3 teams. However, all teams have the option of responding.
Hey everyone, so I'm Dan Chepanik, Media Services Director. So change of pace here. Evaluate which of your competitors is your biggest threat in terms of the team you think is the biggest threat, and in what areas are your competitive teams stronger than your team is? So what areas are they stronger than your team?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. That's a very interesting one. I mean, okay, I'll begin by saying I think that I really actually appreciate, in some ways, the work that RMS has put into coming together with their platform. I mean, I know that you guys are up against 2 teams, which I would say have quite a bit of experience within society, and I really would like to commend you for doing so, because I know how uninviting the AMS can sometimes be, having worked outside of it in my first year for some of the time as well. And so I would really like to commend you guys in doing so, and that makes you a very, very strong team, I would say, in being able to put together all of the work to come up with such an amazing platform in such a short period of time, having not worked here before, as some of us have for sure. And I mean, to end this, I think that we can state our biggest competitor, but if we didn't think we were the best team for these jobs, we shouldn't be running. Thank you.
GPP.
Thank you for the question, Dan. For me personally, I think Tristan is actually someone who represents someone with a great amount of experience. He's worked in an AMS service and has actually done a great job in turning Common Ground and reducing the deficit that they were producing last year. So I commend you, Tristan, for that great work that you did. In terms of a platform that is really excellent in terms of the way you crafted, I actually have to commend RMS. They did a fantastic job coming into this situation and doing a lot of research and coming in with a lot of fresh ideas. They did an absolutely great job in bringing a new perspective and a new kind of idea of how culture at AMS should be. So I commend you for that. It's an absolutely fantastic idea.
So mine is quite simple. I really want to commend GPP on having the guts to challenge us to Catan. because so everyone knows, Jeffrey is also the president of the Queen's Board Game Club. I'm the vice president. Sean plays all the time. Our one campaign volunteer plays with us all the time. And also, the reason I'm friends with Jeff, besides Finers, is Catan. So like that's some serious guts.
All right. So Student Affairs is currently undertaking a pilot program to create a co-curricular record, which is basically a non-academic transcript for students to supplement their academic transcript. If the AMS were to contribute to this process, it seems as though the Human Resources Officer would act as the point person for the AMS. But as you probably know, the HRO already does a tremendous amount of work and would not have the time to fully commit to this project. I would like to know your opinion of the co-curricular record, and if the AMS were to take on the project, who would you assign it to, and how do you see them contributing?
Starting with GPP.
Thank you for your question. So the co-curricular transcript has been something we've been talking about for a little bit, and there are some challenges with it that we identified on council this year. Certain challenges include what activities will be included on it, what if students don't want certain activities included for various reasons. For example, when I was in first year, when I was a member of the Education and Career Shoes Project, at that time it wasn't something that I would want on my transcript applying to a job. But at this point it is something I would want on, but then I wouldn't have. So can you choose what activities go on, and how can you suit them to your job, that kind of thing, and what you're applying to, be it school or work. So there's some things that do need to be sorted out. It does seem like a good idea. In discussions with other grad programs, it's still debatable as to how beneficial it will actually be to the programs, considering that there aren't as many other schools using co-curricular transcripts as of right now. I think that if we were to do it out of the Human Resources Office, we would have to recognize that it would have to be probably creation of another deputy position who would be assigned to that task, because it would be a very, very large undertaking for that person. And frankly, the Human Resources Office is already overworked. So we definitely would have to be looking at developing a deputy position for that.
We have discussed the co-curricular transcript, and the general feeling on Team RMS is that we think there are significant problems with verification in terms of, if you look at marks on a regular transcript, there's a really rigorous system in place to make sure that that mark reflects what the work somebody actually put into it. With co-curricular transcripts, we see a great possibility for difficulties in verification, and the worry that because it's very hard to verify that it won't be a particularly useful document. In addition, I think there are areas in which it would duplicate some things, where extracurricular activities are already included. For example, if you say apply for a SHRC grant, a Social Sciences and Research Council of Canada grant, if you look at how that is evaluated, there is a 10% section devoted to extracurriculars already. Also, statements of interest for graduate school. If you have included relevant extracurricular activity, they want you to include it already. So we have mixed feelings about it, let's say that.
Great, thank you for the question. So I want to start by saying the co-curricular record is actually something that we, Team JDL, completely support. And we spoke with Ann Tierney, the Dean of Student Affairs, about this initiative and asked her how she wants to go about setting it up. So I think the most important aspect of this record is that it's going to be completed by you. This will be on Solus, and it'll actually work on a drop-down menu system in which you can choose what activities you've been involved in at Queen's. So it'll act as kind of a database, and then there will be a brief description written for every single one that is verified by the university as well. The important parts of this is that to build this database, obviously, would require a great amount of time. This is something that I know Dean Tierney is committed to doing this summer, actually, and she wants to hire students on board in order to complete this database. So it would be the building of a number of different opportunities. For example, somebody who worked a job or volunteered for QTV, and they would have a verification process for ensuring that. And then there would be a verifier for every single initiative or every single thing that you've been involved in, which then would be verified by that person. So as for involving the Human Resources offices in this, I'd like to start by saying that the Human Resources Office is completely overloaded as it is. There's so much work put on this person every single year to do human resources for this entire corporation, which is massive. I know there are certain points, especially during hiring for the corporate services, when the Human Resources Officer is working literally 6 a.m. to midnight every single day, which is not okay by any means. Something I think we need to do to change this is perhaps hire part-time staff that work on a short contract basis in order to help with the hiring process alone. So I really don't think that we should be pushing the idea of this onto the Human Resources Officer. However, I do like, I can't remember, I think both of you might have said it, about having a deputy in order to oversee this process as well would be very important. I think the biggest challenges with it, and what Dean Tierney agreed with us was, and I think I really appreciate what TK said, is what you want to go onto this record and what you don't want on it. And then how we decide what goes into this database so that nothing is given less value if it's amongst hundreds of other opportunities as well. Yes, thank you.
Gracie Goat, current H&S Director. Queen's is currently finalizing a policy document which pertains to alcohol on campus. The matters discussed in this document range from general health and wellness initiatives to more specific operational guidelines. This will impact services such as the 2 AMS bars, the Queen's Pub and Alfie's nightclub, but also any event run on campus that wishes to serve alcoholic beverages, for example, the Engineering Society's annual Sci-Formal. To what extent do you believe that university administrators have the right to affect our student-run operations, and why should the average Queen's student care about this issue?
RMS.
Yeah, I think the administration has a right to be concerned about drinking culture because there are problems with it, and there are issues that I think we're aware of. How much, in terms of how much pressure they want to exert, I think for the administration, it's a question of image and reputation and what the drinking culture at the university represents. I would hope that if they push, we push back. I think we want to make sure that we don't promote drinking culture, but at the same time, we don't allow the administration to take away people's legitimate choice to drink, a responsible choice to drink.
Great, thank you. I actually want to agree with what Briar said about the university taking away a legitimate and legal and responsible choice to drink, because that's not something that I believe the university should be able to do. However, I think it's really important to address the drinking culture on campus. This is something we've talked together as a team. It's very important that, and it's fine that people drink, and it's okay to, and I drink sometimes as well, for sure. But it's important to not do so in excess, and to know the dangers of drinking and the dangers involved with alcohol. And it's always very important to ensure that you don't put yourself in a dangerous situation or a peer pressured into drinking if you don't want to be. And I think it's the other part of this is that it's completely fine to drink, and there's no problem with it at all as long as you're doing so safely. One thing we really wanted to talk about was taking a harm reduction approach on it on campus as well. This is something I know that the AMS pub services already do, and that's really why the student constables exist and why we have our APB policy that exists. That's really important to us, and I think to touch on something I know the university has been working on, they did a residence ban through all of orientation week this year on drinking, which is something that we've thought a lot about, and whether we agree or disagree, we think the positives are that nobody would then feel pressured in any way to have to drink because it wouldn't be allowed in residence. So somebody wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable not doing so because nobody would be no matter what in the buildings. So that's definitely a positive of that initiative. The negative side that we've seen is that a lot of students who come to university and do want to drink in their first day at school, or if they choose to, would be going into the university district area and doing so at houses in an unsafe manner rather than safely in their residence rooms. So I mean, there's definitely two sides to this. I think the biggest thing that needs to be done is address the drinking culture on campus and ensure that there is no pressure placed and that people really do know the dangers associated with alcohol, because there are many and they are very great as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Gracie. I think the existence of this group is actually incredibly important. It's important to deal with issues surrounding alcohol, especially when it has an opportunity to make suggestions to affect harm reduction at the university and to address the culture of drinking that we have in our society. However, we do need to monitor the situation and the recommendations that they do suggest. From what I've heard from Faye and Will, our student constable, they do occasionally attend the meetings of this working group to make sure, to basically listen in and see what the university is talking about and make sure that we're informed and we can anticipate what they're going to be maybe coming down the pipe with in terms of recommendations. We should keep our finger on the pulse of that situation and make sure that any recommendations they do make don't have a negative impact on our services. Because again, we do have many ways of harm reduction, including student constables, as well as policies in our TAPs. I'll hand it over to Rico as well.
Thank you very much, Gracie. I guess I'd just like to add, Tristan mentioned about the first years and the residence band during orientation week. I'm a residence don, and that's something that MCRC, the Main Campus Residence Council, and JRHC is something that they could have reversed if they had wanted to. It was in the discussion table, and so I'd just like to address that. It's something that students do have a say in. Regarding one of our platform points, we're proposing a first-year Alfies night once a month so that first-year students can be provided with an opportunity to go on a location where they can have fun. They wouldn't be provided with alcohol, but it's a revenue-generating opportunity for the society, marketing Alfies, and it's a way of providing them with an opportunity to avoid going to the university district, places they don't know during their first few weeks and whatnot. Thank you.
Rebuttal, RMS.
Hi. I'd just like to add also in terms of orientation week, it really sets the tone, I think, for drinking culture on campus. And I'd just like to commend ORT this year for bringing in student affairs to ask, providing workshops on how can we talk about alcohol with our first year students and giving training on that. Because the default answer is often silence, and silence is often not good enough. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Justin Chin, student at large. My question to you is towards everyone on the team. How will your religion or non-religious beliefs affect the way you fulfill your position?
Great, thank you for the question. So this is something, I'm actually not religious at all, but it's very important to recognize one's perspective on different issues as well. I know that it would be very difficult for me to comment on a religious issue because I don't identify as a religious person myself. So I think it's one of the most important things to recognize is perspective in a number of these issues as well, and not overstepping or speaking on something that I don't think that I should be necessarily, or at least speaking first on. Because I come from a very different background, obviously, and a very different perspective, given that I was raised as not religious. And I don't know if I can speak for my two team members with that as well, but this is more of a personal issue, I'd say, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Justin. I think that in terms of religion and the decision-making process, we will have to be doing a lot of consulting with various student groups on campus. There are a lot of strong faith-based groups at this university, many clubs as well as committees who do work on different religious issues. I currently oversee the Religious Affairs Committee as my role of the SIC. And through that position, I've learned a lot about consulting and different beliefs and different understandings that I don't have. And I've really seen the value and the need to work with those groups and ensure that I'm really getting a full picture of student needs. Just because religion may mean one thing to myself or my team members doesn't mean that that's what it means to every other student on this campus. So again, really looking for feedback and consulting on those issues is very, very important to this team.
I personally identify as an atheist and an agnostic, but in terms of decision making, the influence of that is more just my position, and of course that's a position that I try to be skeptical of and evaluate and make sure that I don't unfairly treat anyone any differently. In regards to specifically functioning within the AMS Constitution states that clubs cannot restrict membership based on race, religion, etc. So the important thing is, of course, that we make sure that that is true of all clubs. I have been a member of a secularist group on campus called Queen Secularists and Inquirers, but that group is open to everyone, and we really love it when people come. And that's what the AMS has to do. It has to hold clubs to that regardless of their perspective, everyone has to be welcome. And that includes everything from a secularist club to a Christian club to a Buddhist club to a cooking club.
Hi, my name's Matangi, and my question is to all three teams. Given the journal's declining circulation and the decline of print media itself, should they plan to move to an online-only format or perhaps shut down completely?
Starting with GPP.
Thank you very much for your question, Matangi. In my opinion, personally, I don't believe we should stop providing a print version of the journal. The print version allows for dissemination across campus, while an online version is obviously available online from computers. I think it is something that's unique about print media, that like having in our hands. I personally like reading papers in print. I don't really like reading papers online. It's kind of a personal preference. From what I hear, people also have that personal preference. In addition to that, if we don't produce a print version of the journal, we'll actually lose advertisements in our journal, which will pretty much reduce our revenues by a large amount. Revenues from advertisements become a significant part of our budget of the journal. And if we just stop printing the journal like cold turkey, we're going to lose a lot of money, and the journal won't be sustainable.
So the simple answer is no. I agree with everything Duncan just said. That we really think that the journal should remain in print. You can utilize online media as well, but exclusively online, no.
Great, thanks for the question. I think this is a very important one that we need to address as well, and I actually do agree with the other teams as well on this issue. I'd like to elaborate a little bit more further than that. I know that the mandate of the journal is to keep the student government as well as Queens accountable. There are other parts of the journal that are very important to recognize. So the journal provides a very unique experience to all of the students that volunteer or work for the organization. They literally provide a journalism program that does not exist at this university. And I'd say perhaps one that's better than an actual journalism program, sorry. I know I can't speak from experience on that, but I think this practical experience that people get from the journal is extremely valuable. I know, having spoken with one of the editors-in-chief, Claire Clancy, about this actually, I asked her what her long-term plan for the journal would be, and I think I really valued what she said about it, saying that she wants the journal to remain in line with the industry standard for the national newspapers as well, and ensuring that the journal is always providing good experience that will be valuable and applicable to the work world immediately after university is finished. So while the Globe and Mail is printing still and not only doing it online, the journal should be as well. I think there's a very fine balance. I know Duncan mentioned about print advertising being a great source of revenue for the journal, which it totally is, and it composes a very large source of the revenue actually as well. So if you were to eliminate all print right now, I think the journal would have a lot of problems in that having only online advertising doesn't bring in quite as much revenue. This is going to have to be a very gradual shift though, and I know that the journal has been shifting gradually recently, given that this past year they reduced the amount of issues printed every issue to 6,000. I believe it was from 9,000, but journal people, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Thank you.
Rebuttal, RMS.
I just wanted to quickly add a couple points. The Journal is one of the oldest student-run newspapers, and I think we need to really keep that tradition and heritage alive by keeping it in print. Also, from last year's annual report, it mentions how the Journal is currently in an excellent position going forward, and I don't see that there is any need to change where it is right now.
Stephen Pariser, Campus Activities Commissioner. So this is a question for whichever candidate would like to answer it. What are the philosophical and practical differences between a commissioner and an officer? Seeing as I've had both roles, I'm kind of interested. And what, if anything, would you like to do to change the structure? So one more time, what are the philosophical and practical differences between commissioners and officers? And what, if anything, would you do to change about this structure?
Simple answer is I don't have an answer right now. I haven't been part of the organization. I haven't been able to see how precisely the differences are and how that functions and how everyone interacts. That is one thing I will say I'm very interested to learn about.
Great, thank you for the question. So I think I'd like to start. Commissioner roles all do sit on council, which is a very unique body to the AMS. It's the great decision-making body for what the AMS decisions do. To a certain extent, I'm going to correct myself there, sorry. Assembly is the major decision-making body, but council does make many decisions as well. Council is supposed to politically advocate for the interests of students, whereas the officer roles are more for support. However, I really want to stress that doesn't make them any less significant as well. So officers that we have HR, marketing, communications, IT, student center officer, and those are all meant to be support positions that support all of not only the services, commissioners, the executive as well. And those positions are very unique in that they're probably the only ones in which you work with every single employee of the AMS in many ways. I know that, to give a couple examples, HR is one that literally works with everyone. He or she, whoever it is on year to year, will see everybody's application that comes into the society and oversees hiring. Marketing communications, especially communications, is one office that works with the entire society as a whole and in order to project the society's brand and image to the student body and the Kingston community as well. So I think that there is that fundamental difference given that officers represent support staff and commissioners are supposed to advocate in a political role. However, I think it's very, very important that we always stress that no is less significant than any other just because they don't sit on council. They're very different jobs and very unique jobs. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Stephen. Tristan actually just did a really good job of explaining this. And basically, as he stated, officers support the entirety of the AMS and the commissioners, as where commissioners have a very specific portfolio that you're overseeing, whereas there is a lot of diversity in terms of the type of supporting that officers need to be doing. I think that, as Tristan mentioned, we really need to work to make sure there isn't a hierarchy between the commissioners and the officers. Consistently, I go to all of the officers to help me complete my tasks. Without them, I wouldn't be able to market any of the events in my commission, I wouldn't have any applications, and I would never be able to get my computer to work. I break it a lot. So they really are integral to the running of the AMS, and I feel that they don't receive that type of recognition, that without them, the AMS wouldn't work, that I couldn't do my job as a commissioner without the support from the officers. So they do have a much more diverse portfolio in that way, as where I have very specific interests. And really just ensuring that we are working to make that known and that commissioners understand that you truly can complete your position or any task without them, and that hierarchy isn't there, and that they're also involved more in the decision-making processes that we work on, and that they are being consulted with more.
Okay, hi guys. So my name's Alex Miller and I'm the current AMS Human Resources Officer. A lot of officer appreciation going on here. I'm liking this. So my question is, describe the AMS's progressive discipline system. Why a system such as this one is important for an organization like the AMS, and who it applies to. And bonus points, if you can tell me what policy manual or manuals the progressive discipline system is found in.
Great, thank you very much for the question, Alex. So yes, the AMS works on a progressive discipline system. This is very important. It applies to all of the AMS's staff and employees. That includes full-time and part-time staff. I think the importance of progressive discipline is that it really is in place to allow somebody to learn. We give progressive discipline, so for example, for a full-time employee, we may provide a verbal warning for not acting appropriately, and that's meant to make this a learning process. It's not supposed to be a punishment by any means. It really is supposed to be in order to help somebody improve. And that's why this discipline system is really, I guess a good word is reconstructive in some ways, and that it's supposed to be assessing something constantly in order to improve in the long term as well in your position. A big part of progressive discipline, I think, is that, I know this is something that is often said at the AMS, is that you should never be surprised if you're going to get some kind of discipline, some kind of warning. And the reason behind that is because it's very important that whoever your direct supervisor is always providing feedback along the entire way. I think that's something that's very important for all of these jobs, to always be giving constant feedback both positive and negative, so that we can always be improving. Because these really are very unique learning opportunities. Everybody comes into these jobs, and I can safely say, having done one before, that there's no way you can understand the entire job until halfway through it's done. And I think that's why it's very important to have these systems in place. As for the policy manuals, I'm going to say, okay, there's discipline policy manuals. I'm going to say policy manual 1 and 2. Sorry.
Thank you for your question, Alex. So yeah, my understanding is that it is a verbal warning followed by a written warning followed by dismissal. However, this isn't written in stone. In certain cases, depending on the severity of the actions of the employee or the volunteer, you can skip steps in this process. So that is generally the process, but it's not always the process. And before we even get to working with discipline, of course, all of our employees receive training in conflict resolution and communication. And all of these are very important steps in terms of this process, because it is all about communicating with our employees. And we do provide that verbal warning first so that they are learning. It is a learning experience, and we are young, and a lot of us are in positions for our first time. So you're going to make mistakes. You're bound to make mistakes in your position. So really that progression ensures that we are working to provide a learning experience and not being punitive. As for the policy manuals, I believe it's in policy manual 2, organizations, and I think there's also something in the Constitution.
Yeah, my basic understanding of it was basically that, like the other two teams said, we're a community of amateurs, and our disciplinary system should reflect that. We should foster growth and make sure that people are learning. As for the policy manual, I'm going to say process of elimination 3.
Thank you. I actually just wanted to use this rebuttal to add a couple things to what I said originally, because I realized I missed a couple points. So the word that I was looking for that I can come up with is a restorative system, and that's what this discipline system is based upon. And another point I wanted to touch on is the demerit system. And I know like this is something that is used in the corporate side for sure in all of the services, and demerits are consistent across all of the services for different I don't want to say irresponsible acts, different mistakes that somebody can make while working at a service. For example, if somebody's a certain number of minutes late for a shift, they get a certain number of demerits. For example, if somebody's an hour late for a shift, they get 6 demerits. And then at 12 demerits, you are actually terminated. But another important point of this policy is that it's always up to the regard of the manager or whoever the supervisor is. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, just point of information. So the progressive discipline system is found in the Employee Policy and Procedures Manual and the Volunteer Policy and Procedures Manual, which are 2 of the manuals that the HRL works with.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi, my name is Deanna. I'm a 4th-year student, and I'm asking this question as someone who's worked at TAPS for the past 3 years. It has been proposed by several of the teams that more all-ages or alcohol-free events should be run at Alfie's. If you support this notion, how do you plan to offset the cost to the service itself and to the employees who will lose shifts if volunteers are asked to work these events? And who would train the volunteers to work these events and use the equipment at Alfie's? Also, please take into account that the service staff is paid service wage.
All right, so thank you very much for your question. I can address that. On our platform point, we mentioned the first year night at Alfie's once a month, and this was based on a study that was conducted by MCRC, by the current president, George, and it's something that he surveyed 183 students, if I believe correctly, and there was about 87% of them who were wanted this Alfie's night, or when they did the study last year, it was for a clubhouse in Lower Banbury, and most of them, 87% of them, wanted to pay, had a willingness to pay of $5 for cover. And so that's something that we were planning on looking into. We recognize that Alfie's is not a clubhouse in Lower Banbury, but working with MCRC, working with JRHC, and splitting up some of the costs and perhaps even creating some revenues out of it. We recognize that it's not going to be generating the revenues that you expect from alcohol sales, but if you charge a cover to cover that, essentially, you could make a revenue. Just to give a bit of a, I guess, like an idea, I organized an event that was an all-ages event when I was in first years, when I was a 13-year society president for arts and science, and we fundraised $4,000 in one night. So this was an event we organized in Grand Hall.
So our basic plan with Alfie's is to try to increase attendance by producing a special focus on special events. So trying to get things like Kingston Slam poetry into Alfie's, and trying to basically play up things like that have been successful before, like jazz night, like classic rock night. The other thing where we want to do is, or that we think, we like GPP's idea of an underage night, particularly because it's advertising effectively. The hope is that if we can get people into Alfie's, let them know that Alfie's exists, and have them like Alfie's, that they'll keep returning to Alfie's in later years.
Great, thank you. I'd like to comment first by saying that I think this first year Alfie's night poses a lot of issues for Alfie's and for TAPS as a whole. I know a number of them Deanne actually listed already, but given that it was proposed to be run by volunteers, I don't know how realistic it is, given that you would need a manager still working at Alfie's, and if this is a technically not-for-profit night, I know you did mention cover as one option. I think there's a lot of things that we really have to consider about whether this is actually going to benefit the service as a whole. I know that this is something that maybe sure a lot of people would be interested in. That's definitely something we have to consider as well, because we do want to provide the best and most unique services possible. Having said all of that, I think one of Deanna's points that's really, really crucial is training, in that I don't think that we should have Alfie's open with a number of volunteers working and not trained staff and not trained managers. I don't think it would be safe. I don't know exactly, but I think we'd probably have some kind of liability issue as well. Having the pub open, or sorry, having Alfie's open, there is still alcohol present, and I mean, I don't know if you want to remove all of that from the area, but I think we'd have a number of liability issues as well. Another thing to discuss is that Alfie's, I think our first focus needs to be ensuring that Alfie's is at capacity on the nights that it is open already. So we have Jazz Lounge, the Lounge, on Monday nights. We have Wednesday and Friday night Alfie's, and then Classic Rock once a month as well. I think our first priority really needs to be ensuring that those nights are full, and there's no reason for them to not be before adding more events to the system as well. I know, having spoken with the TAPS managers from last year and this year, that special events nights are often not profitable for Alfie's at all. It really doesn't benefit the organization as a whole, for the most part, from a business perspective. It is really great, though, that organizations can hold events at Alfie's that can be, for the most part, and often free of charge if they reach a certain quota. So I think this poses a lot of difficult issues, and we really do need to focus on ensuring that Alfie's is the #1 venue to go to before adding different kinds of events to it as well. Thank you.
All right, so I'd just like to address some of the comments that were mentioned by Tristan. And I guess to begin with, when we were referring to volunteers, we didn't actually mention that we would be replacing any of the staff. I was speaking with MCRC, and they were mentioning that they could provide volunteers to help out with the additional staff that we already have in place. It would be the residence facilitators and residence house presidents. They would be facilitating, marketing the event. That would be the type of volunteering they would be doing, maybe selling tickets ahead of time so we can make sure that we sell enough tickets and create enough cover to not incur a loss at the event. In addition, as RMS mentioned, we do feel that ensuring that Alfie's being at capacity is a way Wait, sorry, you mentioned that we should ensure Alfie's at capacity, and one way of doing that is by advertising it to first year so they can be loyal to the service later on.
Sorry, point of information. Ashley Egan, the current Vice President of Operations, and I, the current HNS Director, have been working with Jack from MCRC all year, as well as consulting with our liquor license holder, Bruce Griffiths. And at this point in time, it is not in our best interest to be having underage patrons in a unsealed facility with alcohol present. And we've actually been working with Jack all year to find other options for events for first-year students who'd like to have that sort of experience in a facility other than Alfie. Can I ask my question? Sweet.
Hi, my name is Isabel. Please describe the relationship between the AMS and its media services. What would you like to change about this relationship, if you could? Thank you.
So the basic relationship is in terms, it depends on the service. With the journal really challenges the AMS. It ensures transparency and makes sure that the AMS, that everybody knows, well, all of the inner workings, or we hope everybody knows all the inner workings. Other services provide exposure for parts of the AMS, various events on campus, like Yearbook and Design Services does convocation, and the CFRC does all their wonderful music programming and all of that. And of course, Queen's TV doing awesome things like broadcasting this debate. We really want to see QTV used more. We want to see it hopefully broadcast our executive live chats. That's a particular part of our platform. We want to get exposure for the executive. We want to make it so that we go around campus every month, at least every month, and get questions from people and share information about the AMS and make sure that we really don't appear to be scary people hiding in an office.
Thank you for the question. I think the relationship between the AMS and the media services is very different than it is between the other corporate services as well, because they're very differently designed services in the first place. So it's very important to recognize that the job of the media services director is very unique from the other services directors as well. The main differences are that, I'm going to use the journal as the first example I talk about, is that the AMS should not, and does not at the moment, have editorial influence over the content of the media services. Except YDS is a little bit different. But for the journal, QTV, and CFRC, the AMS doesn't at the moment have any editorial influence, and I really don't think it should, because then it wouldn't be allowing the services to be operating under their original mandate. However, the AMS does have financial oversight over these services, which I think is very important to ensure is kept constant, given that both the journal, CFRC, QTV, all actually receive AMS fees. Both the journals and CFRCs are mandatory, QTVs is not. But it's very important that we do have financial oversight, because that is money that's coming in from students' pockets directly to fund these services. So yes, I would say that it's very important that we maintain that financial oversight, but we should never by any means be inflicting any policies against their editorial content, I don't think. And that is why boards such as, I know Journal has J-Board and Editorial Board, which are two separate entities. So the VP Ops does sit on J-Board, which is more for financial decisions and long-term planning of the service, whereas Editorial Board is meant for the editorial content, is all internal to the journal, I believe with external members as well, but I'm not positive, so again, journal staff correct me on that. I think something that would be really great to institute in the future would be applying this guideline that was set by the journal, which is one of the older services, to QTV, for example, which is one of the biggest growing services this past year, and now has revenue over $70,000 budgeted for this year, which has been a massive increase from the year before. So I think it would be time, and it would be really effective to institute I guess you'd call it Q board, and they already do report to Board of Directors and the AMS for financial oversight as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Isabel. As Tristan said, one of the main kind of pillars of the media services portfolio is ensuring that our media services do have editorial content especially with CFRC, the Journal, and QTV. It's incredibly important that they are able to report on what they need to and ensure that AMS is held accountable. That's a very important tenet, what we're looking for here. Obviously, they have to be financially accountable. A lot of student dollars go into those organizations, and we have to make sure that those dollars are used efficiently and effectively for the better use, or for the betterment of students. In terms of actual relationships, obviously we have a reasonably good relationships with the Journal and QTV. There has been some tension with CR4C historically in the past. However, I think there are some opportunities coming up in the near future, especially the 2015 CFRC re-signing of the campus radio agreement with the CFRC, which will actually allow us to work better with the CFRC and kind of develop a strong relationship with them, and a better working relationship as well, hopefully. So I think there's a real opportunity for that in the future.
Hi, Jeffrey Ingold, Night Coordinator of Wacom. My question is for the VP of Operations candidates. Could you all please explain the value of Wacom to both patrons and service staff, elaborating on any plans you have for the service next year, as well as what is the AMS undergraduate fee for the service? Thank you.
I'm going to start with the fee to get that over with. The undergraduate fee is $18.51, and I'll actually say the SGPSP is $17.51 for clarification as well. So the value of Wacom, I think, is found in many different aspects of the service. I know I kind of touched on this earlier. Wacom, having worked there for 1 year, has quite possibly one of the greatest senses of community I have ever seen at a place I've worked for. It provides the most unique experience to its staff of 150 approximately, as well as 5 night coordinators and a head manager. And it's, I think, a very essential part of this Queens community. To kind of differentiate it from other safe walk services across the country, Wacom is one of the very few that actually pays staff to work for it. Most are volunteer operated, and Wacom also is the largest of its kind in the nation. I'm not positive North America, but again, you guys, yes, North America as well. I know it's one of the best of its kind. I think the value can be found, number one, in the staff community that it provides. Number two, I know I touched on the idea that Wacom does walk people home and ensure that they're safely arrive at their destination every single night. The other benefit of the service is that it really does act as the eyes and ears of campus security all around campus and the university district surrounding area at all times. It's extremely important that we have this service available, because having people walking around is really the only way that we can tell what is going on around. I know every year there's a question asked in debates. It hasn't been asked yet. I don't know if it will be. But with the idea of having Wacom replaced with a car service. And I think the disadvantage of that is literally that you wouldn't have these eyes all around campus all the time. And that's something that's extremely important to Wacom, and makes it very unique. It is an amazing service, and I think that everybody that has worked there and many that have used the service can attest to that. I have one last point I want to make. It's kind of in reference to a story a good friend of mine once told me about their experience with Wacom while working, actually, is that it can really provide a very unique experience to its patrons as well. Wacom, I mean, to put it lightly, can really brighten your day. And I know that seems cheesy, but if you're having an awful night in the library, you get to walk home. It's somebody you can talk to for 20 minutes, and that can perhaps change your day. And on that note, Wacom staff and many staff of different services do act as our greatest marketing tool for the AMS. They are the first impression that somebody gets with this organization, and we should really be using that to change the impression of students on the society, because some of its most passionate employees and volunteers are the ones who will give the best impression of the society as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Jeff. Greatly appreciated. Wacom is absolutely a vital service for this campus. It provides over 12,000 walks in last academic year, and is obviously provides the most walks of any Wacom service in Canada. For the patrons, it provides an absolutely fantastic service in terms of providing safe walks around campus as well as to their homes in the university district. Friendly conversation. You might even make a new friend. Who knows, right? It's also confidential and discreet, which is really important. If people don't feel comfortable having other people know that they're taking walk home, again, the walkers know that they need to be confidential, discreet, and approachable and friendly as well. For the walkers themselves, it provides an opportunity to meet new people, maybe do a little homework at the kiosk, play some board games, have some have some juice, have a good time during the evening. But most of all, for ideas moving forward for Wacom, it's really important that working off the successes of this year, we continue to make the kiosk a friendly and approachable place so people feel comfortable coming up, asking for a walk, and heading wherever they need to go. One of the challenges, especially, we've seen a general increase in number of walks per year, and we have to make sure we hire an appropriate number of staff so we have an appropriate number of teams working each night. It's sometimes hard to predict. It kind of shifts on night to night, so it is hard to schedule in the proper number of teams, but something that we have to really work hard to do in order to serve our patrons.
So in first year, I was a finer, like Jeff and like Sean, and I was a hard-hearted finer, so I didn't use Walk Home, and walked out to my little cell of a room off of Concession Street, and I was terrified, and I since really regret never using Walk Home. And I'm sad I did, because I think I lost an opportunity to meet a lot of people. I lost an opportunity to be able to feel a lot safer. I lost an opportunity to see some of my friends. Some of my friends have worked for Walk Home. Marianne Sheehy worked there, and she was a really good friend of mine. I really like it. I'm really sad I didn't use it. The other thing, I really like the idea of charity walkathons. Really like that idea. That's really good. And I really appreciate also just having it for people like finers, because even people who've lived in Kingston all their life, I know Walk Home is really, really helpful. In terms of the future, just continue doing the great job. That's it.
Can I add something to that? I just wanted to also add that we were looking into offering mental health first aid training for all the Walk Home staff, because we think that's a great place for mental health first responders to catch problems on campus with students that might be having issues. If all the Walk Home staff were trained to recognize those signs, I think that would be a huge benefit for the service.
So I know I'm keeping you all for so long doing this, but I just wanted to add one last thing that I didn't mention with Wacom before. I think a good priority for the future, and given that Wacom's been growing on such an incremental level over the past number of years, is increasing that growth over the next number of years as well. I think marketing should be a really great priority for the service in the future, because when you think back to the mandate of the service and what it's here for, it should be providing the most number of walks that it possibly can. Along with that, obviously, there does come the issue of how we staff the service, depending on how quickly it's growing and how rapidly it grows. That's something that can be addressed year to year with the service as well. Thank you.
Hello. My question is from Rachel Piltz. How much will your platform points cost? Who will pay for them and how? Be specific.
Okay. So again, our platform is structured around room for improvement, so there's nothing really large here, I don't think. Creating user-friendly manuals, I'll try and do that myself if I can, and I'll work with my executive to make that happen. The only thing cost there, I think, is man hours in actually producing them. In terms of AMS newsletters, again, man hours required to do that. That's just brief little blurs from each commission saying what's going on and how you can get involved in a little one-page summary. Again, this is man hours. Constitutional review, man hours. Executive live chat sessions, with the cost would be QTV and moving around. I didn't get a quote on that, but I don't think it's not that large. Increasing clubs grant support and streamlining procedures. That involves increasing the club's grant pool. It's not like a huge jump we're talking about. We're talking about using something like, at most, like $10,000 extra. Spaces at a premium. That has to do with renovating the JDUC, and again, very small improvements. The largest ones are the IT office and the peer support center getting bigger, and I would say 50,000 ballpark at most. AMS Food Center services, again, that's just essentially a partnership where donation bins and cash donations, so I don't see any costs there. AV rental IT office, again, I think I already included that in the peer support center, so intramurals, installing basketball nets and volleyball nets in Mac Brown, again, I would say $20,000. Importance of mental health first responder training. That's again man hours. Restructuring AMS office space. That's moving people around. Revamping the Queen's Pub menu. I don't have a ballpark on that, but that's something we're going to consult with students to see what they want. And putting a place for an overhaul of Alfie's image, including its name. I would say adding signage. The major cost there is lobbying the university, and any changes that need to be made in order to make that the place to have special events on campus.
Great, thanks for the question, Ty and Rachel. So I'm actually going to go into a little bit of detail on a few of our points. I don't feel that I have time to go into all of them in great detail, so I'm going to start with the PEC, which is one we've talked about a lot tonight. And this is something I know I said before, we don't have an exact quote for it yet. And we won't have that until we have an engineering assessment team come in, which is very much so doable by physical plant services. And that, as we said before, would be something that would be paid for by advancement by the university and not by students. Because that's something that the university, we really think, owes to the student body, having not completed the Queen Center project. Sorry, that was really loud. Okay. Next one I wanted to talk about was revitalization of the JDEC. This is something that I think is in everybody's platform, obviously. It would cost $1 million with a $200,000 contingency. The important part of this is that it's coming directly from the the Student Center Fund, which is one of our restricted funds that now, at April 30th, will have $500,000 left in it. $700,000 will be transferred to the university, and then the cost will be split between the two parties the entire duration of the projects, which do need to be begun by April 2015. So that will be a long-term thing as well. Q College is another one we wanted to talk about. Q College will actually be run under a deputy under the AC. It'll be the restructuring of the AC will allow this to fit into the system. I know previously Q College didn't work because it was a corporate service, and the manager's salary could not be made up for. But Q College now would be something that would be under the AC, so the salary would not be a problem. And then as much as possible, we'd be offering some of the classes for free if possible. Others would be paid for, obviously. One thing we've considered is charging a certain fee for the entire program, but we'd want to keep that very low, obviously, as well. And the last one I want to speak about is the Common Ground Salad Bar. This is something that obviously there would be increased costs for the service as a whole, but these would be covered by the increased revenue that would come from this amazing salad bar at Common Ground Express. And the cost that we would need to do would be staffing there. I believe, and this is something that can be fiddled around with, we may need to add one extra staff at Common Ground Express, which is $10.25 for every hour that they're working for however many hours of the day. And that's for however many hours of the day, which is not actually decided yet, because there is right now the decision process of whether Common Ground Express will be open still till 3 or later in the day as well. So that's something to be found for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel via Ty, for the question. So I guess I'll go through kind of the main points of our platform and just break down the costs for you. So right off the bat, we have our JIC renovations proposed to be around $1.1 million, and that includes a 20% contingency for any cost overruns that occurred during that project. Let's see here. Let's go through. Our job bank and tax return help will cost students anything. That will hopefully be free. The course registration wait list is actually already paid for in the upfront costs of SOS. So there's no more additional funds that will be required for that platform point. Keeping this non-NAD student run is again free as well. Prioritizing mental health, again, we'll be keeping the peer support center open for longer hours, but all of our staff are volunteers, so again, that will not be costing us any additional funds for that platform point. Keeping our financials transparent and easy to access, again, won't be costing us any money, we'll just have to post them online, no cost involved with that. The Queen's Rugby League, again, we bring that as an intramural, but there is no equipment for rugby. There's no, other than like buying, pads, I guess that's a personal expense. But there's actually no expense outside of that, other than probably buying some rugby balls. Maybe $100, let's say, around there. For the room booking system, that will be probably a larger cost. The current SCO, as well as the Student Center office, is currently looking to find a new room booking system for the SLC, for the room bookings. They haven't, from what I understand at least, they haven't settled on an actual provider yet. I don't know what the estimated costs of that will be currently, but we're committed to making sure that follows through. Because one of our major complaints we've heard talking to students is booking rooms. And right now it's not very easy. You have to send an email, get an email back, try to reschedule over and over again. So we really want to make sure an easy to use room booking system is accessible for students. Let's see, as we talked about, the first year Alfie's night will hopefully be offset by charges or by cover charge. So we charge people entering the Alfies. Our other major platform point there is a sustainable AMS and Student Life Center. Again, we're talking about replacing some of the windows in a JEDUC to make them more environmentally friendly and lose less energy. We're budgeting around probably $50,000 to $100,000 there. We're being pretty ambitious with that. We do want to try to affect as much change as possible with that platform point. I believe that's all the major platform points right there. Again, we have done our research on this. We do know the costs. It's really important for us to know that our platform is feasible and achievable. And the idea of not knowing major costs for any of our platform points is really quite concerning, and we really want to make sure we did our research so we know what we're trying to get into.
I'm just going to add real quick onto what Duncan just said. Oh, I'm out of time, so I won't, but thank you anyways.
I'd just like to say that I think Team GPP is grossly under-exaggerating how much this performance lounge is going to cost. For those of you that don't know, the JIDIC is a heritage building, a historic building, and every time you knock down a wall or frankly open a door, you have to go through the Heritage Committee, and this is a notoriously slow committee. To give you an example, the Isabel Bader Center for the Performing Arts, which I guess the shovel sort of entered the ground almost a year ago, and they haven't built anything yet. Funnily enough, this center offers the exact same thing that GPP is proposing. They haven't built anything yet because the Heritage Committee is notoriously slow, and every time you go to the Heritage Committee, your architects, your engineers, and all the members of the administration have to go, and you have to pay them to be there. And frankly, I don't care who you talk to say how long this is going to happen. You can't estimate how long this is going to take, and every time you're going to go, it's going to cost more.
I just wanted to quickly bring up the point that both other teams have committed to using the entire $1 million in their platform. We commit to only use a small, modest portion of that $1 million, and then to consult with students to see what they want us to spend the rest of it on.
Sorry about that. All right, so in case that JDL didn't quite read our paragraph on page 8, we're outlining exactly how much it costs. We met with 5 different contractors, and so this is space of 30 by 60. We're trying to develop Pigeon Alley. If you take a look, that would be an estimated cost of $350 per square foot, $630,000. Then in addition to that, you have to approximate 10% more for the engineering cost and the design, architectural design. Then moreover, you need to include PPS fees, which is about $150,000 in the project. And then similarly, you need to take into account some of the relocating some current steam lines and adding a 20% contingency markup. So with utilities and all that, it would be around $1.1 million. It's in addition to the building, so we wouldn't have to go through the Heritage Committee.
Okay, my question is directed to the VP Ops candidates. So as you all know, there's a 100% turnover in the AMS, and that's a great thing, but it's also kind of a bad thing for some of us who have worked jobs. Fortunately for us, this year we had 3 directors who were former assistant managers and a vice president of operations that was a director. Since none of you have been part of the corporate side of the AMS for the last year in a managerial position, I want to know what you can do to ensure that the continued efforts of the services that people have put into this year can be continued, and what, name one service that you feel has one specific big picture change or effort that you think is important is continued next year.
Great, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, that's a very good point. None of us have been involved in a full-time in a full-time corporate position this past year. I, however, was involved a year before that as the head manager of Common Ground, so I do believe that I have the best experience in that sense in taking on this position. I think it's really important to be able to speak to the management teams at all times. Something that's very important for VP Ops is really much so, and I know I mentioned this the other night, a sense of humility. It's very important to recognize what you do know and what you don't know. There are 10 corporate services that you're supervising, and on day one, there's no way you're going to know everything about them. I think these jobs always do have to be about learning, especially because there is a 1-year turnaround, as you mentioned. So it's very important that we are always taking, and I know we talk about transition being a process before the job starts. I really think your transition is the entire first half of the job as well. You are learning the entire time, and that's what the point of this society is. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
So name one in one service, one effort that you think should be continued next year.
Okay, cool. So yes, I would like to apply my experience from the year before and my understanding of how the services work to be able to learn as much as I can about the past year as well that I have missed, not being involved to that extent. As for one service and a big initiative that I think should be completed, I think I'm going to go with QTV actually. I know that QTV, and I know I mentioned this before, is one of the services that has grown the most in the past year alone. It's seen like exponential growth in this 1-year period, and I think we'll continue to do so after. I know one thing that QTV implemented this year was and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know the exact stuff on this, the implementation of a live stream system, which is a big step in the right direction. Obviously, we're using it right now. Hi, everyone. And that's something that QTV didn't have before, and they're trying to keep up with the industry standards. One thing I think is really valuable for the service, like I talked about the journal earlier, is being able to provide relevant experience to students where there is no production program at this university. So, in order to keep up with the industry standards, I know that one thing for the future of QTV is the replacement of some of their cameras. This is something I think is very important for that service to continue operating. As for cost, I don't know the exact amounts and where that money would come from at this point. I think this is something that we need to look at in the long term as well, and whether or not it's replacing one camera a year, it's definitely a concern, especially given that the service is growing so much. It will need to replace equipment for sure. So thank you.
Thank you for your question, Nicole. I think, with the 100% turnover system that we currently have, it's really, really important to emphasize our transition process. That's how we transmit the ideas and projects of the current year to the new year and see those projects through to completion. It's important not to try and regress or move back in time. We have to commit to the current projects if they are feasible and worthwhile for the benefit of students and see them through to their completion. I'm really strongly behind that. It's really important to understand that the people who are currently in those positions are the experts, and we have to learn from them and take their ideas and values and experience with us into the new year. The one service I'd be looking at that kind of could have an opportunity for big change this year is Tricolor Outlet. They've been improving their deficit significantly over the past number of years since their creation. They are increasing their brand and really creating a strong brand on campus, and I really hope to see that improve over the next year. Specifically, the negotiations for Coach Canada will be coming up very shortly in the upcoming year, and I really hope to see a negotiation and a contract that will really help benefit that Tricolor Outlet. Currently, we only receive around $1.50 in terms of profit off Tricolor Express ticket sales. I really like to see that improve for our service to increase the bottom line and to make the service more viable.
So to echo what the other VP Ops candidate said, fundamentally, it's a call to action to transition well. It's a call to action to basically go forward and say, I'm going to have coffee with this person here, and that's just Tuesday. Really, it's about learning absolutely everything you can. And I feel this especially because, I have not worked for the AMS before, so for me it's like 10 times. I have to learn everything I can from these people. I have to learn, I want to know their business is better than they do, but at the same time, I still want to let, the managers run them and the directors help run them next year. The one obvious big change is, of course, for us Alfies, we think that that's an underutilized space. We think that that can continue to improve as it has been for the last little while.
I just want to add a point. I'm just going to quickly add one more quote because I didn't get to talk very much tonight, and I love quotes. The quote is applicable to our team in specific, as well as hiring and transitioning within the AMS. It's a quote from Yanni, and it goes, "All you need is passion. If you have a passion for something, you'll create the talent.
So that concludes the debate. Before we get to closing statements, I would like to remind everyone that tomorrow night in the JDoc will be the President's Debate. That will start at 7 p.m. So Team GPP will close first, followed by JDL, and concluded by RMS. 3 minutes each.
Thank you very much. Again, I'd like to emphasize what we've seen here today, that Team GPP's platform is both responsible and feasible and doable within our term here at Queen's. It's important to do your research. It's important to know what you're committing to students. If you don't know the details of what you're going to be committing to, and you can't promise direct influence or change over a situation, that's not responsible. And we've crafted a platform that is responsible and can do all those things. As you've probably seen from the last couple of debates, we really value accessibility and approachability in our platform. It's something that really infuses everything that we do and everything that we have come to believe through our Queen's experience. We want students to be able to approach us, feel comfortable talking to us, and giving us feedback, be it positive or negative. Both are incredibly important to the development of this society. It's important for us to learn from our mistakes and learn from our successes, and to create a better AMS that can provide all of these behind us here. Peer-to-peer, serving peers, creating change and making a difference. That's what the AMS is about. That's what the AMS provides to students here at Queen's. It's important to emphasize that and build upon that and create more opportunities for those to occur in our student population here at Queen's. Again, I would recommend that you read our entire platform at votegpp.com. It's around 41 pages. It's not the quickest read, but it does have a lot of information and a lot of research and a lot of effort we've put into it. I think it's really valuable that you make an informed choice on January 31st and February 1st. Do your research and vote for a team that will best represent your needs and wishes for the upcoming year.
Great. All right. So I'd like to start my closing by talking a bit about the AMS. And I think this is something that has really been covered by all of these teams tonight. The AMS is a truly incredible organization. It is unique to this university. It is one of the greatest of its kind. And it is absolutely incredible that we are able to run the society and we are only students. There are some full-time permanent staff, but it is for the most part only student run. And that is a truly incredible thing. I'd like to stress a couple of the values that I think are very important at the AMS. It is really a learning environment, somewhere where we're supposed to be growing at all times, and that's what really fits into what Queen's is about as well. One thing that we want to talk about, and something that we believe very strongly in, is that the AMS should always be challenging itself, and executive teams coming in every year should always challenge where we are from before. I think it would be I would say irresponsible to get caught in our own little bubble of what we think is possible and what is not. And if you don't dream big, you're never going to accomplish anything. I think it's very important to recognize that. And I mean, obviously that is within certain limits. And that's why we come up with a platform that we believe is both feasible, realistic, but also pushes some boundaries. We did do a lot of research in coming up with this platform, spoke with many different individuals, many students, many administration members, and a whole lot of people in the AMS right now. And we really did try to come up with the best possible platform that could make the greatest changes for the student body as a whole next year and for the years to come as well. We really do think this should be about the long term, not only the short. One thing I'd like to touch on specifically is the incredible stuff that's happening in the AMS right now. This coming year, we are going to have $1.2 million to spend on the revitalization of the JDEC. One thing that I cannot stress enough, and something that we believe as a team, as a whole, is that this money needs to be spent on a number of different projects. I think it would be very irresponsible to not consult with many different students before spending this money as well, given that it did come directly from their pockets, went into the Student Center Fund, and is going to be reallocated into projects in the JDEC. The other thing I'd like to stress about that is that this needs to be money going to ensuring that this building can be used for the next at least 10 years. That should not be on maintenance, which is on the university. That should just be on enhancing the student life of this building. The last thing I want to touch on is that the role of VP Ops is very unique for sure. It's something that I think we can probably all see after tonight requires a very broad and unique skill set. something that is very difficult to come by for sure, and it's a very unique role that oversees many different people. The first role of VP Ops is as a manager, and I know this is something I touched on a lot yesterday. Management is one of the most important points of this job. I know that's something that I have from before. So the last thing I wanted to say is we, Team JDL, are very much so committed to pushing the boundaries. We want to stand up for students and do what we think is right for this university. I hope you'll join us on February 1st and January 31st. That was verse. Vote JDL. That is Tristan Lee, Doug Johnson, and Mira Deneen. Thank you very much, and good night.
So, to sum up tonight, in terms of what Team RMS is about and what our thinking is about, external to the AMS does not mean that we are somehow cut off from the collective knowledge and wisdom of the AMS. What it means for us is that we have a special call to action to learn about this organization, because it's really it's a well-run organization. That's why our platform is room for improvement and not fundamental overhaul. We have had a great time learning about the organization, interacting with its staff, getting to know as much as we can before this campaign. And as a testament to our desire to learn and our motivation, I encourage you to examine how exactly we've conducted our campaign. You will note we have no campaign managers. We made our website ourselves. Our video was made by us. We have these are our ideas. We wrote our platform to try to be personal and direct, because fundamentally, we wanted to show that we are motivated, that we are capable, and that the learning curve is not too steep. It is steep, but we are ready to climb it, and we want to, and we think we'll do a good job while doing it. I'm very, very pleased to be running with Jeff and Sean. Sean has immense experience. I hope in my role as VP Ops I would be able to continually access his very, very wide range of knowledge. Jeff is a dependable, wonderful person. He's a great friend, and I love the idea of working with him, and I know he would be a great representative for students. So I hope at the very least, you go check out our website, you really pay attention to the small details, exactly how we structured it, because it shows how much we care.